How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about some coaching changes, some coaching hires, big coaching hire out in New Jersey. The New York Giants have named John Harbaugh their next head coach. Although things are not official yet, but it's going to happen. John Harbaugh is going to be the Giants' next head coach. And I know we talked about it briefly when I had Dami on. We talked about the playoff games from over the weekend. But I did want to dive into the topic more so on Mike Tomlin stepping down as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. And the Steelers are going to be looking for a new coach next season and the ramifications with that, particularly with Aaron Rodgers. But I did want to get into talking about Harbaugh being hired for the Giants first, because that's what happened last night. Late last night, reports were coming out that things were kind of moving in that direction. Harbaugh did leave the facility. I mean, the Giants were going to do everything they could to make sure that he didn't leave the facility because they really wanted him. They wanted him to be the guy. And when we were just at about midnight on the East Coast, it was confirmed. Adam Schefter tweeted it. Giants are going to name John Harbaugh their next head coach. And again, not official, but it's going to happen. And for the Giants and their fans, this is a home run hire. This is a home run hire. This is someone that the Giants have needed for years. This is the best head coach. Now, we got to see what happens on the field, but this is the best head coach that they've had since Tom Coughlin was let go back in 2015, after the 2015-2016 season. The Giants have gone through coordinators and failed head coaches, getting a second chance. This is what an organization like the Giants needed. Giants need stability. They need somebody, and another thing that's been thrown around is a program builder. That is what John Harbaugh is going to bring to the Giants. The Giants need a figure that's going to come in and discipline this team. Provide discipline, build a culture. This organization has needed that for so long, right? They've had a few years where, they make the playoffs, and then after that, they go back into the tank, right? 2016 and then 2022. I thought Brian Dable was going to be the guy after that first year, but then the last 2 years, it hasn't worked out. And then he comes back again in 2025, and they had two big wins after Jackson Dart took over, but the team still did not do well, and they're going to be picking in the top 5 in the NFL draft. So, and again, not all the blame should be put on Dable, right? Shane Bowen with the defense, and how many fourth quarter blown leads did they have? It's more than just on Dable, but it's just there needed to be a change. Now, it seems like Joe Shane is still going to be sticking around, so we'll see what happens there. But Harbaugh, we'll see how that relationship unfolds between Joe Shane and John Harbaugh. But this was a great hire. This is a great hire. I mean, once he became available, you knew that he was going to be the top choice. Now, like, I had my choices. There was Harbaugh. If Tomlin became available, he was going to be another choice. Again, we'll talk about Tomlin more so in this episode. But also, I thought Mike McCarthy. I think those, to me, would have been the top 3. I know Kevin Stefanski is a top choice for a lot of people out there. But Stefanski, I guess, would have been like my 4th choice. And if Matt LaFleur ends up being let go by the Packers, which doesn't seem like that's going to happen, it seems like he's going to be brought back and they're going to extend him, then he would be another choice. But those were my top 3, and the Giants land John Harbaugh. And I know that there are Ravens fans on social media saying, yeah, good luck with that. And, other fans of different fan bases are talking about the Giants being a team that blows fourth quarter leads. He's a head coach that, under his watch, his teams have blown some fourth quarter leads. We've seen that this past season. But to me, the Giants, it doesn't matter, because the Giants need someone that has won in this league, that's a proven head coach, that could turn this franchise around. And he was the best option when he was made available. And it's amazing how John Harbaugh was let go last week after the last week of the regular season, and then Mike Tomlin steps down. It's just amazing. We are really seeing a seismic change across the league now. I mean, those two guys were like the longest tenured coaches, and now they're going to be either coaching elsewhere or just not going to be coaching at all next year. And Harbaugh is going to be with the Giants next year. And I look at the NFC East, and you want to be cautiously optimistic, right? But you look across the NFC East. I mean, John Harbaugh is the best coach right now in this division. Okay, now Sirianni's been to 2 Super Bowls. He won 1, so you got to give him the respect that he deserves. Even though Eagles fans want to run him out of town now with the latest elimination from the playoffs. Yes, yes, my dog agrees with that. But Harbaugh has the best resume, right? So, and you got Dan Quinn, you got Schottenheimer, but Harbaugh, he's the number one guy. And the Giants, he's stepping into a good situation, right? You got the quarterback, all right? You got good players on defense. You got Malik Neighbors coming back next year. You got Cam Scatterbo coming back next year, right? There's a foundation there. But now they need a leader, and that's John Harbaugh. Now, there's definitely some improvements that need to be made to this roster. They have to improve the secondary. Obviously, the offensive line played well this past season. They need to continue to work on that, particularly, I guess, the right side of the offensive line. Maybe. Linebacker is another position that they need. You're going to need another weapon opposite of Neighbors, because I don't know if they're going to bring back Wan'Dale Robinson, and Darius Slayton, I think, should be cut. No offense to him, but that just didn't work out. Hasn't really worked out. It was kind of a surprise to us all that the Giants brought him back. But there are pieces in place. And then you look at some of the other teams that could have been a possible destination for him. Like the Falcons were another team that they'd be competing with. And the Falcons have good pieces on their roster, with some of the defensive players and obviously offense. Well, the offensive pieces are really the most attractive part of the team. Drake London and obviously Bijan Robinson, who's one of the best running backs in the NFL. And we'll see what happens with Kyle Pitts if they bring him back. It's really the quarterback position that's an issue, because Kirk Cousins, I feel like he's going to end up somewhere else next year. And then Michael Penix Jr., there's an injury history. So are the Falcons going to have to come up with a different plan there? It's amazing with that, because you drafted Michael Penix Jr., and before that you gave Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed on a 4-year contract, coming off of an Achilles injury, and both of those guys might not even be the answer. They might have to look for an entirely new answer. Now, Matt Ryan steps in, I think, right, is the president of football operations. I think that's his position, and I think that's great that he's back with the organization. But yeah, the Falcons, they're not that far away. They just got to figure out the quarterback situation. So yeah, that was an attractive spot. I know Miami was thrown out there. I mean, they're going to have a different quarterback next year. I mean, I don't know if Quinn Ewers is going to be the long-term answer, and Tua's certainly done there now after being benched. And you didn't know what was going to happen with Matt LaFleur. If Matt LaFleur was going to get let go after the playoff collapse against the Bears, but he's going to stay there. But to me, the Giants, they were the most attractive spot for Harbaugh, and he's going to bring in his own staff. They're already working on that. And yeah, with this division, back to what I was originally saying, I think Harbaugh is the best coach out of what they have, and I also just think that this division is not going to be as much of a juggernaut as you thought it was last year. Because yeah, the Cowboys, they have a very good offense, but they still got to work on that defense. That defense was not good, so they're going to have to fix that. Washington, they made it to the NFC Championship game last year, but this year, Jane Daniels was hurt. The defense was not very good. They got some question marks going into next year. And the Eagles got some question marks going into next year. I think the Eagles are still going to be a good team, but I don't know. Is A.J. Brown going to be a part of this team next year? Or is he going to get traded? That's something that we're going to see unfold this offseason, because I think he's probably done. He might be done with the Eagles. And we saw how Jalen Hurts was when Nick Sirianni was there the first year with no A.J. Brown. Like, yeah, he had a good year, but when A.J. Brown got there, that's when they really took off. I mean, you're still going to have Saquon Barkley, you still got Devontae Smith, you still got Dallas Goedert, and you're still backed by a pretty good defense. So the Eagles are still going to be a good team, but what we were thinking after they won last year's Super Bowl, you're thinking this is going to be the next dynasty. Might not be that. Might not be that. So it might be there for the taking for the Giants. But you could also say, all right, you need to slow down. I do need to slow down. Because for me, as someone that grew up rooting for the Giants and being a Giant fan, the key for the Giants, for me to fully buy back in, and I've already told this to some of my friends, you have to be able to sustain it. And I think with John Harbaugh, they can do that. It's definitely there because you have the quarterback, you have pieces on defense, you got a wide receiver one, you got a running back one. The offensive line is heading in the right direction. There are things to like about this team. And now that you have somebody that's going to come in and build a culture here and be a leader of men, I am optimistic, but you have to be able to sustain it. You can't just make the playoffs the first year and then that's it. I'm back in. You got to be able to sustain it. This team needs to be competitive every year. Enough of these years where they're winning 3 or 4 games or 2 games. All right, there's been too many of those because in the beginning of in the 2010s, start of the 2010s, I mean, yeah, they weren't good teams, but at least like you're winning 6 or 7 games. I know what I just said for the people, those two numbers, but you know they weren't like finishing bottom of the league. Now all of a sudden they're finishing bottom of the league. I mean, 2017 was awful. Last year was awful. This year was awful, despite knocking off 2 playoff teams in 2 of the 4 victories that you had. So the Giants have to be able to sustain it. And obviously there's a lot of things going on behind closed doors with John Mara, and we're wishing him nothing but the best in his recovery, and hopefully he could get through this, his battle with cancer. It's tough. It's tough. But the Giants really went the extra mile to get John Harbaugh in here. And he's here. And I'm very happy that that's the case. This was a great hire for the Giants. And now it's all about having a good draft, having a good free agency, and we'll see what happens when they take the field next year, how it's going to look. But there's a lot of signs pointing to the Giants being one of those teams. Like you look at what kind of transformation the Bears went through this year, compared to last year, right? You get Caleb Williams last year, but you didn't have the right head coach. Now you bring in Ben Johnson, and all of a sudden this team is 1 game away from an NFC Championship game and 2 games away from a Super Bowl appearance because of that relationship. Now you bring in Harbaugh and a full year of Jackson Dart, full year Neighbors, a full year of Scadaboo, and hopefully the defense, you bring in the right coordinator and maximize the potential of this defense. Sky's the limit for what this team can do. Giants have talent on this team. They do. You might not believe it, but they do. They lost several games this year that they could have won if it wasn't for late game blown leads. But now, next year, things could be on the come up for this team. I think I think with Harbaugh in here, and you put together a good draft, you put together a good free agency, you got the quarterback, they're going to be a tough team next year. They can be that team that makes that jump. But at the same time, you look at the recent track record for the Giants, and you say, they got to go out there and prove it. They got to go out there and prove it. Got to see it to believe it. So, again, this was a great hire by the Giants. This could definitely put the franchise back in the right direction. Get them out of this rut that they've been in for so long. And be looked at as a respectable franchise again. Because the Giants have been one of those teams that's been a laughingstock for years. Because of the hires and the certain things that coaches have done over the years. I mean, the Eli benching, the QB sneaks inside the 5-yard line. there's just been a lot of antics, a lot of noise that the franchise wants to be respected again. This is how you do that, by bringing in this coach. That's a proven head coach. That is what I have wanted for this team. That is what many Giant fans have wanted for this team. They can't enough with the first-time coordinators. And not to say that you shouldn't give a chance to a first-time head coach that's been a coordinator. Look at what Kellen Moore is doing, right? Look at what Matt LaFleur did with the Packers and the 2 years with Aaron Rodgers, winning back-to-back MVPs. Obviously, you got to give these guys a chance. But for the Giants, a team that's been going through that same cycle over and over again, and it's proven to be unsuccessful, you got to go a different route. And this was the right route. And it comes at a time where there's a lot of candidates out there that you could pick. But they got arguably the best one available in John Harbaugh. So let me know what you guys think, though, about the Harbaugh hiring for the Giants. What do you think about it? It's a great hire. But I did want to get into the other news, and that is talking about Mike Tomlin stepping down. So we did talk about it briefly the other day, but I just wanted to give you more extended thoughts on this. Yeah, I mean, to me, first of all, I would say, and again, I don't have sources, and this is just me assuming. I think if Pittsburgh would have went on a deeper playoff run, and it's not really that outlandish, but Pittsburgh goes on a deep playoff run here, I think Mike Tomlin does come back for at least one more year, because that's what ownership was saying, that they were prepared to, run it back with Tomlin for one more year, and then you discuss what's going to happen after the fact. But that did not happen. And I would go back to when they lost that game to Buffalo and you were hearing the fire Tomlin chants. I think that all got to him. And I think he is someone that maybe does need a bit of a reset, a bit of a break, to kind of just take a time off, take time to step away from the sidelines, and maybe come back to it at some point. But also, I'm getting the sense that maybe it's a possibility he doesn't come back at all, because I think there's some reports out there that he might just not come back at all and not coach. And I know television is an avenue that could be explored, and I'm in lockstep with a lot of individuals that think he would be great at it. I think he'd be great at it too. I think he's got a great personality. He's got that attitude. He's got that personality for that type of gig. So I think that would be great for him. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, him not being on the sidelines next year for Pittsburgh. And I just, with this playoff loss on Monday, yeah, it was time. And even I said it before they went on that hot streak, after they got embarrassed by the Bills. I was saying, yeah, it probably is time. But then all of a sudden, they ended up finishing the year 10-7 and getting into the playoffs. And then you're like, oh, well, we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers playing well. And man, did they hit a wall against the Texans. I mean, the Texans defense was unbelievable. But that's the Texans defense for you. And I said, that's a team that can make a Super Bowl run because of that defense. Because of, from top to bottom, the players that they have, what they're able to do, they could take over a game. And they forced 2 turnovers that led to 2 touchdowns. 2 defensive touchdowns, a pick six and a scoop and score. So, yeah, no, that's a great defense that they went up against. And the Steelers' defense, made their marks on the game too, forcing turnovers. But it's just, it came down to the Steelers' offense, just their inability to get anything going. And I just think there was a lot of noise, and I just think, it's a tough job. He's been the coach of the Steelers for nearly 20 years. I think this is right, 19 seasons. it was time, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Um, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be very different next year. And I think the Steelers are an attractive job, but that's a team that needs a lot of work. And I think it's one of those teams, and fans have kind of wanted this. They kind of want this team to not always be in playoff contention every year. They kind of want this team to take a year off and not be very good, and be drafting in the top five, because they need a franchise quarterback. They can't be going through veteran quarterbacks every year now, because that's kind of what they've opted to do. And they've made the playoffs. They've gone 10-7, but that's their ceiling. They go 10-7. They make it to the first round of the playoffs. They get knocked out. They're one and done. And you had Kenny Pickett in here. They drafted him, hoping he could be the next franchise guy. That didn't happen. They need to find their quarterback. They have not found it since Big Ben. And I think Rodgers has probably been the best quarterback of that group that has started games since Big Ben retired. Again, the bar is not very high because, again, some of the quarterbacks that they've had to play, I mean, Mitchell Trubisky being with the team for a couple years, Mason Rudolph, another guy who's on the team still, left for a year, signed with the Titans and came back. I don't know what the deal is with Will Howard, what's his future holds, but I don't think he's going to be the guy. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, but I don't know. I don't know. But Steeler fans want this team to just be bad, be not competitive, because they kind of just are stuck in this purgatory where they're picking, between, 15 to 20 something every year. They want this team to have a high draft pick. And again, you got some older players on this team. You got to get a little younger. And they kind of went all in with these older players, with Rodgers, with Jalen Ramsey, and some of the older players they still have on this team, like Cam Hayward, and T.J. Watt's getting older, and he still hasn't won a playoff game yet, which is hard to believe. But he's been in the league 10 years now already, which is unbelievable how fast his career has gone. But they need to go through a rebuild. The Steelers do. But that hasn't been the Steeler way. And it's, whether you had enough of Tomlin or not, it's still very impressive that of those 19 seasons, he did not have one losing season. The Steelers were in it every single year. Every single year. Even if they just missed the playoffs. They were still in it. They were still in it till the final couple weeks. And I think, again, it's the same thing with John Harbaugh. You just needed a change. You just need a change. It's better for both sides. That was the case here. And if Mike Tomlin wants to come back and coach, he will get hired immediately. He will always have interest. If he wants to do TV, he can excel at that. If he just wants to go off into the sunset, he could do that too. He's going to get a gold jacket. But yeah, he's not going to be on the sidelines next year. Or he's not going to be on the sidelines for the Steelers next year, I should say. And there was also reports out there, their final team meeting, and a lot of the players, I guess, were caught off guard by him announcing that he's stepping down. And the article in The Athletic talked about, Aaron Rodgers being very emotional, and T.J. Watt and Joey Porter, the tears being shed. I don't want to say that was not true. It might have been a little exaggerated in the article. I don't want to say it was 100% true, but in the article, Rodgers was allegedly sobbing. T.J. Watt shedding tears. It is hard to imagine that, but I do definitely think there were emotions were running high because of the amount of respect that Mike Tomlin has in that room. And Aaron Rodgers, the reason why he went to Pittsburgh was to play for Mike Tomlin. They have a very good relationship. And from afar they had a good relationship, but now, being with Mike Tomlin for a year, the relationship definitely grew. And they were coming off a very emotional win against the Ravens the week before. And I know they were definitely hoping for better. They 100% were hoping for better. It just did not go there. It did not go that way. So yeah, I mean I get it. A lot of those players, that's all they've known is Mike Tomlin. I mean Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt. A lot of the veterans that have been on the team for a long time. And what's the future holds for them? Is Cam Hayward going to call it a career? I'm curious to see what happens with T.J. Watt because I have thought about it. Could you trade him? Could he be traded this offseason? Because if Mike Tomlin's gone now, if you kind of lean into this rebuild, what's the point of having T.J. Watt on this team? You trade it. I mean, you could definitely get something for him. Trade him to a contender and get some picks and, make a deal. It's possible. And I think this also definitely signals the end for Aaron Rodgers. I still was on the fence because I thought maybe there was still going to be another year of Mike Tomlin with Pittsburgh, and I think if that was the case, Rodgers definitely would take some more time to think about it because he has enjoyed his year with Pittsburgh. And I still think he can play, right? Not as consistent, but even that throw to Calvin Austin, late in the game, chucking the ball down there, he could still throw the ball 70 yards. I mean, so we saw him chuck a Hail Mary again this year. I mean, the ball wasn't caught, but still, he still has the arm strength. It's just he can't move around like he used to. And, yeah, some of his throws are erratic, but he could still play. But I think at this point, with Mike Tomlin now stepping down, I don't think he's going to come back. And I think the Texans defense really beat him up. He took some hits in that game. I think at this point, I mean, if he wants to come back, listen, I'm not going to be against it. I want to see Aaron Rodgers continue to play. But at the same time, he really doesn't have anything to prove. He doesn't. The only thing he could really do, if he comes back and somehow went on a miracle run to a Super Bowl, yeah, that would help it. I mean, that would only enhance his legacy, but I just feel like his legacy is kind of cemented with what it is right now. And it's a great resume. The MVPs and obviously having a Super Bowl ring. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He doesn't need to prove anything. I mean, I know some people were joking, oh, yeah, there was a young fan yelling, yeah, Rodgers, please retire. Like, yeah, if he wants to prove that fan wrong. I don't think he has anything left to prove. He's got the hardware. He had a great career. And you know what? Yeah, the playoff game didn't go well, but you could always point to the final game of the regular season where he went back and forth with Lamar Jackson, and he looked like vintage Rodgers for a moment there. So I think this is it. I think Mike Tomlin stepping down, that definitely signals the end for Aaron Rodgers. But maybe not. To me personally, I think that's it. Because even before he signed with, even before that, before the season even started, he said it was either Pittsburgh or bust. And the main reason he went to Pittsburgh was to play with Mike Tomlin. Now Mike Tomlin's not there. So I think that's it. Now, again, he's still going to take some time to reflect on this season and, get healthy, and then he'll make a final decision. But I think it's going to be definitive this time. That I'm going to say I think that's it for Rodgers. But who knows? Who knows? But there is no Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. So no Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. John Harbaugh is going to be coaching for the Giants next season. I hope it's not the end for Mike Tomlin as a coach, because I still think he is a good football coach. But once again, it's just one of those things. They needed to break up. Pursue other options. And I think, again, Mike Tomlin is always going to generate interest. So he's going to have no problem finding a job if he wants to keep coaching. But, Yeah, end of an era in Pittsburgh. Very emotional end. Pittsburgh is going to look different next year. I mean, both on the sidelines and on the field next year, because I mean, there could be more guys. They got a ton of free agents. It's going to be interesting, but there's going to be a Pittsburgh might not be 9-8 or 10-7 next year. Might not happen. You might see a losing season next year, depending on what they do. So, but let me know what you guys think though about the Tomlin stuff, about the Harbaugh stuff. Obviously, as more news comes in with different coaches, Mike McCarthy, Stefanski, Mike McDaniel, Cliff Kingsbury. There's still a ton of Brian Flores. There's a ton of options out there. There's still a ton of open spots. Pittsburgh needs a coach. The Raiders need a coach. The Browns, the Ravens, the Titans. There's a ton of teams that still need coaches. So we will talk about that. And obviously, we got the playoffs still going on right now. The best weekend is upon us, and that's divisional weekend. Got some very good games this weekend. Looking forward to watching them. National championship game is on Monday between Miami and Indiana. So yeah, big football weekend coming up. But let me know what you guys think about the two topics we discussed. As always, everybody, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video, to the channel. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can follow us as well. Just look up Infinite Sports. You'll find us there. And as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Have a good one. Talk to you guys next time. Take care.